Welcome to Elisha's Space Podcast, a transformative journey exploring relationships, personal growth, and emotional well-being. I'm your host, Elisha, and in this safe and nurturing space, we dive deep into real stories of healing, share practical wisdom, and discover powerful tools for creating healthier, more fulfilling relationships. Whether you're working through your own challenges or simply seeking growth, you're in the right place. Let's begin today's healing journey together. I have Bryan Power with me. And in 2024, Bryan Power and his wife would go from having a pretty good relationship to a complete relationship failure that culminated with a restraining order against him for his wife's emotional safety. During their time away, Bryan and his wife would work on themselves, and that work would ultimately allow them to put their relationship back together. Now Bryan shares his story and teaches others about the integrated attachment theory program that helps save his marriage, and that now provides them with the tools necessary to continue having a healthy and happy relationship. Bryan, welcome to the show.
Elisha, thank you so much for having me. It's a real honor and a pleasure to be with you. I love the work that you're doing. Hopefully we can help some people today with the story I'm about to share and some of the things I did learn through a pretty crazy journey that I had in 2024.
You're so welcome. I'm so excited for you to share this information with the audience because I think it's going to help a lot of people. Could you start by talking about your journey and tell us your story?
Yeah, I mean, if I got to start a little bit, I go back to my childhood, really, because a lot of our things in life, our patterns and stuff are set through childhood. My childhood was filled with a lot of dysfunctionality. My mom was 21 years old in 1970 with two boys, an ex-husband who was battling drug addiction. There's a lot of chaos. I'm moved around every year until I was almost 10 years old. There was no stability, a lot of chaos, a lot of craziness. And that would ultimately set a pretty good pattern in my life as far as some of the ways I perceive the world. And that stuff would later play out as we become adults. These wounds and stuff that we develop early in childhood, and we can develop them throughout our lives, but a lot of times they are set early on. And so that was my early start into the world. My wife kind of went through similar stuff. She came from a military family, but a lot of dysfunctional stuff in her life as well. A lot of chaos, a lot of alcoholism and stuff, some really kind of stuff that kids shouldn't go through. But those things would set our patterns in life for our future that would ultimately play itself out in 2024 when my wife and I would go through a crazy year where a lot of our childhood trauma would subconsciously begin to play out. As that played out, it really delved into some chaos. I went from having a pretty good relationship. We were pretty in love. Everything was pretty good. No major red flags, no major drug addiction. There was no financial issues, no infidelity, nothing like that you would say that needs to end. Just some normal little fighting, little disagreements and stuff. But that would ultimately begin to hit a crescendo where all these little fights became bigger fights. And all of a sudden I found myself where we were facing complete failure and a restraining order against me, which was just bizarre. At that point, I figured, hell, this relationship is over and I need to figure out how to fix myself and get straight so that I could eventually have a good relationship with somebody else if that's what needed to happen. And so that was the journey I went on.
Okay. What was the turnaround? Like, what happened from there?
Yeah, I mean, so
like paying attention and all in. So I'm like, yeah, in. What's next?
So just to give you a quick synopsis of how it all started to fall apart there. So early in February of 2024, we had a fight really about my parenting. At the time, my son was 4 years old. I have a stepdaughter at the time was 13. Parenting will definitely challenge you to really bring out some of your own wounds and some of the disagreements that you have as adults. Parenting can definitely be challenging, and it was for us. As much as we both love my son, we have different parenting styles, and that was starting to play out and become an issue. So we had another fight early February about my son and stuff. And then she challenged me to get some therapy, which I at that point said, okay, I'm willing to do that. I'm willing to look at myself. Maybe I got some issues here. I'll take a look at that. But I truly believe you need to see a therapist. In my mind, I'm thinking she's got all the issues. In her mind, she's thinking I have all the issues, right? And so that's the first thing I learned is that we always think it's the other person that has the problem, the issues and stuff. It's really hard to look at ourselves and realize that I really have to do some work here and make some changes. So here we began this journey of her doing some trauma work. She started seeing a childhood trauma specialist. I was seeing a therapist as well. And we began this journey. But while that was helpful, it also began to trigger a lot of our emotions. So here, with all the childhood wounds were coming out as we were seeing our therapist. It just began this clash for the next 4 months that ultimately culminated, in June and with a restraining order against me for emotional safety. I never threatened my wife with physical harm, but the emotional clash was so dramatic. We were just breaking down, both of us emotionally, in such a horrible way. She just needed some safety. So she put a restraining order on me. And at that point, I was out of the house. I had to move on. I had really nowhere to go. Didn't know what to do. Normally, I probably would have ran back to Florida, which is where I'm from. My friends and family are there. But I have a son, and I had a friend who challenged me. He said, your father abandoned you. My father abandoned me. Look at how we're struggling as adults because of that. You can't leave. You got to stay there for your son. And I realized he was right. Once I made up the decision to stay, because I knew I couldn't leave at that point, I just was willing to sleep on the street if I had to. It didn't matter. I was going to fight for my son. Once I made up my mind to do that, I really felt like the universe, God, whatever you like to say. I personally like to say God started to do some miracles on my behalf, and things really started to happen. And I was able to find a great place to stay with a friend of mine who was also battling a divorce. And so we were able to really help each other and just begin the emotional healing. Along the way, I had also come across what's called integrated attachment theory, which was created by Thais Gibson out of Canada. Attachment theory has been around since the 70s. So for people who don't know, attachment theory is the way we connect in relationships. And while that information is great, I love what Thais Gibson is doing, where she created the integrated attachment theory program, which gives you 6 core elements to begin how to heal the attachment styles. I was fortunate, about a month before I actually got kicked out of the house, I came across her work and I was fascinated by it. And I really just delved into that work even before I left the house. But once I was kicked out, if you will, I realized that I just wanted to continue that journey and learn and grow and see what I could do to change myself and just be able to be prepared to have a better relationship with somebody in the future. Little did I know that I would have the chance to work that out with my wife. In fact, I really wasn't trying to do the work to get her back. I was really trying to do the work to let her go and kind of move on with my life, because I really felt like it was over. But as fate would have it, it wasn't, and we would have another chance to work on that.
That's awesome. Can you tell the audience what's the difference between integrated attachment theory and attachment? What's the difference between the two?
Yes. So attachment theory, again, has been around since like the 70s. And it's really, there's 4 different attachment styles, if you will. And it's important to know these. What Thais did is she created a program that begins to fix this. So attachment styles are the 4 different ones. Number 1, you have a secure attachment style. That's somebody who's really emotionally balanced. They know how to communicate fairly well. They set good boundaries. They know how to communicate. They just have a good way of dealing with relationships. And maybe they had good parenting. Maybe they just figured it out later on in their life somehow. But they've reached a point in their life where they're just really good at relationships. They know themselves. They know how to handle themselves well. And that's the one that we all aspire to. I would say that most of us are not there, though. That's probably a smaller category than we wish. I'd like to see everybody in that category. But I think most of us are probably falling into the other 3 categories, which are more dysfunctional attachment styles, which are, number 1, you have what's called an anxious, preoccupied attachment style. They're very clingy, the relationship is very important. They really love connection. They can be very outgoing, very giving, kind, caring, a lot of good qualities there, but they can also be very needy because they outsource their needs to their partner. They can also be very much people pleasers, doing things for others to the point, because the relationship is so important, that they want to make sure everybody's happy so that they don't lose the relationship. But it comes to a point where it's just a little too much and a little overbearing. A lot of times, an anxious, preoccupied will fall in love within 2 weeks. Let's say they just meet somebody and they just, oh, this person's the greatest person ever. But they're just kind of that way, very connected, love connection, really have a fear of being alone, fear of being abandoned and stuff. That's one side. The other side is almost complete opposite, is more of that dismissive avoidant. Dismissive avoidants really crave independence. They like connection deep down, but they have a hard time believing or accepting that they do. They kind of poo-poo their emotions a little bit. They're not really good at feeling their emotions. And when they do feel emotions, they like to isolate a lot more. They need to sort them out on their own, in their own way. Sometimes that can be very hard, because if, let's say, somebody else is anxious, that person's craving some connection and the other person's craving some distance. That's where the clash in some of this communication comes in, and the breakdown and the struggle comes in. And that's what was happening with my wife and I. She was leaning a little bit more dismissive. I was leaning a little bit more anxious at the time. And that's where our problems came in there. And in the middle of that is what's called a fearful avoidant. A fearful avoidant kind of swings between both of them. They will have that anxious side. Some weeks, maybe they're very loving, kind, caring. And the next week, they're completely backing off, shying away, telling you, give me some space, maybe even breaking up with you out of the blue for no reason. All 3 of them are challenging on their own. They just have different ways of handling relationships. And they're all been developed over just their lives based upon their experiences. A lot of it does go back to early childhood, and they've learned coping mechanisms and how to handle life and the way they perceive relationships. And none of them are healthy, but none of them are worse than the other. Sometimes dismissive avoidance, if you look them up online, they'll get a bad reputation because the way they handle things, everybody thinks they're cold and callous and really just heartless and stuff, but they're really not. They just have developed a certain way of dealing with relationships, and it's not healthy. It's no worse than the other, though. It just needs to be worked on. But yeah, those are the three. And then Thais Gibson came along, and she developed 6 core elements to the relationships to begin to fix those attachment styles. And that's what I love. Those 6 things are: number 1, fixing your core wounds; number 2, working on your needs; number 3, working on your emotional stability; number 4 is boundaries. How do we set them? How do we set healthy ones? Number 5 is your communication. How do we communicate? And that's huge, right? And number 6 is our behaviors. So when we work on all 6 of those core elements, it's a real game changer for any relationship, and it can really begin to heal your attachment style and work to get us closer to the secure attachment style. And that's where the work comes in. And it does take some time to do that, but things can happen pretty quickly. It's just one of those things that the work will bring us to more of a secure attachment style, which is where we want to be.
So, how did those 6 core elements bring healing to your relationship with your wife?
Yeah, while we were away, like I said, I was just delved into the program, and I was really working on some of those core wounds. I have a really big fear of abandonment. That's just one that really plays out for me because my father was in and out of my childhood so much early on. Because of the moving around a lot, I think I just developed a really bad core wound of abandonment, fear of being alone, very much of not being good enough. All these core wounds that I was working on that I needed to reprogram. And there's some exercises in the program that you could do to help begin that pattern. A lot of awarenesses were coming too because the situation was so drastic. I was getting a ton of awarenesses. So that's the first step, is seeing that the awarenesses were coming and then begin the healing on that. I did a lot of the workbooks as far as learning more about my own needs, understanding some of the boundaries and how to deal with my emotions better. Emotions are really just information. So there is no really bad emotions, if you will. Sometimes we get angry. Sometimes we get fearful. All these things come up. That's just information. And so what I have to ask myself when I feel the emotion is, what is it telling me? Why am I fearful? Why am I angry? What's really going on here? Or why am I happy? What's making me feel so good? So I can really understand what's going on and causing those emotions to come about, because our beliefs and thoughts are what's really beginning to cause our emotions. So my beliefs and thoughts are what trigger the emotions. So I need to figure out what's triggering that. The communication was huge. I really feel like we've learned so much differently on how to communicate, understanding my wife's attachment style. I'm understanding sometimes that she just needs some space from me. It's not to hurt me. It's not she's angry at me. It's not that she's going to leave me or anything like that. It's just that's the way she processes. And so now when she is upset or angry or something, I'll give her that space, and I don't have to internalize it so much like, oh my God, she hates me. She's going to leave me or something because she just needs some space. No, I can give her an hour or two. I can give her a day or two, whatever time she needs to where she can get regulated. At the same time, I can express my own needs. Hey, look, this is important to me. I do want to talk about this. I realize that maybe now's not the right time, but I do want to revisit this because this is something important, right? So I can communicate that to her, but I don't have to force it as if it has to happen right now. Behaviors is another one. If I'm emotionally triggered, I can go for a walk. That's one thing I love to do. If I get a little bit emotionally triggered in the house, I'll just say, honey, I got to walk. I'll be outside. I'm going to go for a little walk, and I'll get out the house for an hour or two, whatever it takes just to get regulated. And then once I feel better and I'm more regulated, I can come back in the house now and not be triggered and not have emotional blowups that are not healthy, right? So just all those little things that begin to work a little bit here, a little bit there. All of a sudden, we're taking really great steps towards having just a better way of dealing with life. And all those little things do add up to big things.
It's amazing to me how your son is part of your reconciliation story. Because
Yeah,
you probably wouldn't have reconciled with your wife.
Correct. Yeah, 100%. God really just kept me here. He put that on me because literally I was on the phone with my buddy within an hour or so after I got thrown out of the house. And he was the one that made me realize you can't leave. And once I realized I couldn't leave, I realized I'm in for a fight. This is going to be the fight of my life, to just get myself together and figure out how to live, where to live, how to pay my own bills, how to deal with this emotionally. Like I knew I was going to have a situation here, but I had to take it on. There wasn't running away from that. And I think that's something that we all do, is a lot of times our coping mechanisms are to run away. We don't want to face ourselves. We don't want to look at ourselves and realize I need to make some changes. I need to do some things differently here and face my fears, face myself, and learn about this so that I can make some changes. If I had run away, I never would have got back with her. I probably never would have done all the work that I've done and gotten to this point. So it was a true blessing to almost feel trapped, right? They almost feel like I had no choice. I call it the gift of desperation. I had to get this done. And that's hitting rock bottom. But that was a great thing. And I do believe sometimes that's what we need. Sometimes failure is the very thing we need to be the catalyst to success. And that's something that I talk about now with my coaching practices. Sometimes it's okay to hit rock bottom. Let's take that and turn that into something that's amazing, though. So, but yeah, that my son was definitely the catalyst to bring it all together, the bond that made it happen.
So, what would you say was one of the greatest failures you had, and how did you turn it around for your success now?
Yeah, God. I mean, the greatest failure was that whole failure in 2024. I just think that whole year played itself out in such a way. Now, in some ways, I don't blame myself per se because, yes, a lot of subconscious stuff was just playing out.
Mhm.
When her triggers began to happen, her trauma began to play out, then triggered my childhood trauma. I truly think in the long run, it was a gift because we began to have this emotional clash. And I remember talking to an ex-girlfriend of mine who I'm very good friends with now. And my wife knows about it, so it's nothing like that. But we've been good friends. And at the time when I was struggling, I was talking to her. And one day she says, Bryan, you actually sound like a drug addict. And it hit me really hard because I felt like a drug. And I said, I feel like a drug addict. I had used relationships, I'd used other things, if you will, outside of myself to soothe myself and to look for them to help me and heal me and be that the thing that makes me feel good about my life. I was a complete failure doing that, outsourcing my needs, outsourcing my own life, if you will. And that was a big trigger for me that I had to overcome. But and again, as that just delved into that really bad area where eventually the restraining order happened, that was the culmination of the failure, was that restraining order. Because once that happened, I realized, man, this is a mess. This was crazy. Let me tell you, I'm a law-abiding citizen guy. I'd never had anything like this happen to me. So I was just like, this is really bad. And having a restraining order against you is pretty bad. You can't communicate with your spouse. You can't communicate with anybody they know. You have to really be careful in how you tread there. But that would ultimately be a good healing point because we were forced to do what's called no contact. Our no contact moment was forced, but it was a great thing. No contact for us was the best thing that could ever have happened. That complete failure was such an eye opener for me. That is why I call my business literally Make Your Relationship Fail. That's the name of my business. Make your relationship fail, because not because we want it to fail, because ultimately we want to have success, except that failures can be the part of the journey and part of the secret sauce that can launch us to success. Sometimes the relationship does need to fail and have a break, and before we can move on. I always call it a break up, not a break down, right? We're breaking up, we're not breaking down. How do we move up when that break happens so that we can now have a better relationship when it does happen for us, whether it's our spouse coming back and we're having a second chance to work on it with that particular person, or if it does happen to be that relationship is over, how can I then move up the ladder so that I make sure that the next relationship is a better one and a healthier one for me and everybody around me?
I view relationships as having its own identity. And so, just like we are our own individuals and we have our own identity, we live in a fallen world. So, to expect a relationship to never have kinks in it is an unrealistic expectation. It's never going to happen. You'll read about it in books and stories, but that's all you read. That's where you find it. It's a story. It's not real. Within your business, what are some practical tools or strategies that you've learned from therapy that others could apply today in order to start healing within their relationships? What tips could you
Yeah.
give?
Yeah, it's so hard. I tell you, breakups and relationships, when they hit that mark and they're so individualized and we all deal with so much and it's so hurtful, so hard. I always say there's nothing worse in life than losing the person you love simply because you don't have the tools necessary to keep it, right? And so what we want to do is we just want to start beginning to put some tools in our tool belt, our relationship tool belt. We need to accept that, yes, I have some issues. Maybe my spouse has some issues here. It doesn't even matter so much about them. It's more taking ownership of my issues now, right? I'm going to look at myself, take ownership of my issues. What can I then begin to do to improve myself so I can have better relationships and do some work? Now, I'm very partial, obviously, I think, to the integrated attachment theory program because of those 6 core elements. I really feel like there's so much meat in there that it really has helped me. I'm still in the program. I still work it. I'm a coach now. I help others with that journey as well to speed them along a little bit, but I'm still going to learn. There's still so much more to learn for myself as well. It's kind of a never ending journey, if you will, because, relationships are always a little bit tumultuous. And sometimes my wife and I can do great for 3 months. And then maybe we have a day where it's, oh, wait a second, now it's something different again. And I need to figure that out. So it's always good to have a good resource to go back to. I'm very partial to that. What I like to do is I have people mostly go through my website to join the personal development school. So you go to makeyourrelationshipfail.com or myrelationshipfail.com, and you can join the personal development school through my website. And then once you're in there, you're off and running. Now, I will give you a free session with me when you do that. So I'm going to talk to you. We're going to talk about your situation, see if we can point you in the right direction. If you want additional coaching, I'm there for that. I'm there to support you through that. We can talk about meeting on a regular basis so we can really get you going. But I'm a big believer just at personal development school. So many great videos, workbooks. You can work at your own speed. You can delve into it. There's just so much good stuff there. So I love that.
Okay. So I really like that they can just kind of go ahead, go on the website, get to know things a little bit better as far as that's concerned, and that you provide those resources to the public. And of course, I'll have that information in the show notes as well. What would you say as far as hope is concerned? What message of hope can you offer to someone who might be in the throes of their relationship storm and they can't see a way out yet?
Yeah, it's hard when you're going through this to have some hope and think that this is actually a blessing. And that's
Right.
what I realized, that these things are a blessing. All right. Because if you've reached the point where your relationship is kind of hitting the skids like this, chances are it's been a little bit broken for a while and you just haven't
Mm-hmm.
really noticed it. You haven't paid attention. There's some issues been going on here. Now it's being brought to your attention, maybe in a powerful way. I want to tell you first and foremost that I don't care what the situation looks like. I had a restraining order against me. I know others who have been through similar situations, breakups, divorce, stuff like that. I don't care what it looks like now. If you do the work, you do some healing, you grow, your spouse can also do some work, some healing, get some awarenesses. You can be given a chance to work this out with them. Things can come back around in ways that you just did not expect. I did not expect my wife and I to work it out and come back together. I was moving on. I was doing all the work to let her go. And the truth is, when I finally did fully let her go, if you will, that's really when it began to come back around. And so I think the key is to say, okay, wait a second. We're in a situation here. I'm going to focus on doing the work for me. I want to heal. I want to get better. I'm going to put the relationship. It's okay to have some no contact for a little while and give each other some space. Communicate properly as best you can, but then also give some space and time to heal and focus on you so that if you do get a chance to work this out, you've done the work and now you're ready to have a better relationship. I always say that if I had done the work and she didn't do the work, then I may have moved on with my life and not wanted to go back there. Or if she had done the work and I didn't do the work, then she may have moved on and didn't want to get back with me because she would have saw the stuff. Or if neither one of us did the work and we did get back together, we'd have just gotten back into a mess. It had just been the emotional mess that it was before. So that's none of those three options are good. The only one that's really good is that I do the work, then she comes along and does some work as well. And now when we do come back together, we can have a much crazier, healthier, better relationship than it was before. And that's what my wife and I have today. Our relationship is literally 1,000 times better because of the breakup, because of that time away, because we took the time to work and heal and figured out how much we loved each other. And we did want a chance to do it right and be ourselves, be authentic more so, and not have the childhood trauma wounds playing out. We were able to now have a healthier relationship that is more genuine, authentic. We love each other. We try to meet each other's needs. You know, they always say relationships take a little work. It takes a little bit of work. It shouldn't take, there are times when it takes a lot of work, right? But there are times when you should get to a point where it's mostly cruise control. Yes, you're going to have a little skid here and there. You're going to have a little skid here and there, but you learn how to navigate that. Just like driving in the snow or the rain, your car's cruising along, but then, okay, a little skid. Okay, fine. You learn how to navigate that and you're back on the road. And that's what we've learned how to do is just we have different ways of dealing with this and we're able to handle it so much healthier. What a great relationship I have today. So I'm very thankful for the time and the experience that I went through. And I promise you, if you do it, these difficult situations are not meant to harm us. They're meant to help us. They're meant to help us grow. And if we can embrace that mentality, the sky's the limit because you can just take all the negatives that you think in your life are there to hurt you and beat you down. And I used to think I was being punished, right? Oh, I'm being punished. No, you're not being punished. You're being refined. You're being challenged to grow in ways that you never thought before. And when you attack that and you get there, you realize you can overcome that with faith in God and different programs and stuff. Man, all of a sudden you feel pretty good about it. You feel like you can, and now you're able to share that with other people. And that's what I'm doing now, just sharing my own journey and how to help each other grow. And it's fantastic. It's a lot of fun to be able to be on this side of it. I embrace the challenge now. I don't want to necessarily pray like, hey, God, please give me hard times so I can work through that. No, but sometimes it's the hard times that we need to have in order to grow, in order to get to that next step. And so when it happens, we can take that and be okay with it, not be afraid of it anymore.
Absolutely. And I think the reason why I got into my field that I'm currently in is because of trials, tribulations, things that I was going through. And I had to deal with my childhood traumas and everything else that goes with that as part of my healing journey, which is probably why you're a relationship coach now. It's part of your healing journey too, which I think is super cool.
It is. I have a great need for contribution. That's one of the things I learned. I love contributing. I love giving
Yes.
back. I was a personal trainer for many years and it was very satisfying. I loved that work. And then when I sold my fitness studio, I've been chasing the money sometimes and doing jobs that haven't really felt fulfilling. And now as a relationship coach, I feel fulfilled. I feel really great being able to give back and share this knowledge with others and hopefully help them along the journey so that they can also have better relationships. It is definitely part of my healing journey.
If someone wants to get in contact with you, Bryan, how can they do that?
Yeah, the best way to get in contact with me is through my website. Go to my website. You can learn a little bit about me, learn a little bit about the Integrated Attachment Theory program on my website. But there's a page there you can go to if you want to really get into this. Please go in there, join the Personal Development School. Okay, when you join that Personal Development School through my website, you're going to get the best price available. You can do it monthly, you can do it 3 months, you can do a year, lifetime, it doesn't matter. They work with you on that. And just get started on that program. When you do that, I'm going to give you a free session with me. I want to hear your story. I want to talk to you about what's going on. See if I can give you some information that maybe helps point you in the right direction. Maybe some different programs within the Personal Development School to go to that will help get you where you need to be at that moment. And then if you decide you want more coaching, you want to work with me on a regular basis, I'd love to do that. I'm happy to do that as well. We can work on a regular basis so that we can really get you into a healthier spot a lot quicker and get you going and so that you can have a great relationship too. So yeah, go to my website though. That's the best place to find me. I'm also on YouTube. I've got Instagram and all those things, but Elisha will hopefully link those for everybody.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Great.
All in the show notes.
Yeah.
So, audience, I hope that you were able to pick up some nuggets, some gems, some diamonds from what he has talked about today with relationships. I tell you, at my practice, Bryan, that has been on an uptick as more people are coming to me for marriage and couples counseling. If you are needing that support and if you want to look into Bryan's information, you will find it in the show notes. And in regards to your healing journey, I hope you will take the nuggets that are there, pick them up, and use them within your own healing journey so that you and your loved ones can be at a better place. Thank you so much for joining us on where we explore the path to emotional wellness and stronger relationships. Your presence and engagement mean the world to us. If you found value in today's episode, please take a moment to subscribe to our podcast and leave a review. It helps others find this healing space too. Don't forget to follow us on social media at Elisha's Space Podcast for daily inspiration and updates. And remember, all the resources we discussed today, including Bryan's contact information and the Personal Development School details, are waiting for you in our show notes. Until next time, keep nurturing your relationships and embracing your journey of growth. Take care, beautiful souls.